Bhadram karnevi shrunuyama devaha Bhadram pasyeemakshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangayestuštuvagam sastanubhihi Vyasema devahitayat ayuhu. May we hear with our ears what is auspicious. May we see with our eyes what is auspicious. May we enjoy with strong limbs and bodies the life allotted to us. Divine presence and reality. Those are the two main questions in our life. We really don't have any questions about anything else, and any serious questions. Questions about anything to do with this life, with the details of our existence here on earth, what we should do, what we should not do. All these things more or less are pretty clear. And in any case, even if we don't know the answers, we have a pretty good idea of how to look for them. If you want to know anything about anything concerning the ordinary life, there are places where one can obtain advice. There are places where one can get reference. There are ways of finding out everything that we need to know, especially nowadays. Everyone is so much into intercommunication and finding answers to all the questions that trouble us about the details of our life. You don't even have to know any person. You can just find that out from the ordinary sources, the electronic and internet sources that are available. All these things are, any serious question, we understand how to look for an answer, search for it, discuss it. Is it correct? Is it not correct? All these, we know our way of navigating around this world really quite well. Some things will always remain difficult to understand, difficult to find an answer to, but we're not really bothered by that. We can manage the things of this world. To a certain extent we can manage. There may be very difficult questions to face. There may be medical problems, there may be psychological problems, but they've all been investigated to a certain extent. There's a way of finding one's way through this. But on the spiritual side, there things become more different. Yes, there are definitely plenty of answers, there are plenty of organizations, there are plenty of churches, temples, places of worship of many different kinds. And we get many different approaches to religion. And these things also are accessible. But really speaking, a very deep answer to our questions is almost impossible to get. We can get instructions for going from where we are to where we want to go. But to start, as soon as we start on that journey, questions arise. Is this right? Is this where I really want to go? Is this what I really want to do? What am I, basically, what am I after? What is this entity called religion or God? The spirit, all of these things, these are all very, very difficult, very complex, there doesn't seem to be any answer. Furthermore, even if answers are given, they're not satisfactory. Each religion has its own answers to all these questions. But the answers have to be really internalized, have to be understood, have to become living within us. And that seems to be almost impossible to do. You can quote the Bible, you can quote all the scriptures, but it'll just be a quotation, it'll just be from your surface mind that the answer comes. Nothing really comes from the heart, from the central portion of ourselves. And there we have to admit of a dichotomy that is very little understood. The mind is one thing, the heart is another. And generally we don't really put much emphasis on the heart. All the emphasis is on the mind. And the mind will enable us to navigate this world. The mind is absolutely essential. Without that, we could not go from one point to another on this earth. We would not be able to manage our life at all. So the mind is crucial for our life in this world. But if we have only the mind, we get into an infinite number of problems. And most of the problems of the world, if you analyze it, they're problems in our own minds. The heart is almost never involved in these things. Oh, we may have individuals with whom we have a relationship that's a relationship of affection. We have our parents, we have our relatives, we have our dear friends, all of these things. There, the heart begins to play a role. Why are you friends with such and such a person? And why is such and such other person basically just an individual, a face in the crowd? And you'll deal with them politely and all that, but there's no connection, real connection. Why is there a special connection with certain people and not with others? That has nothing to do with the mind. I mean, a little it has something to do with the mind, yes, because on the surface there are certain differences and certain things that we look for and appreciate. Yes, that is true. But the real connection is a connection of the heart. If you're, let's say there's in front of you somehow, you're in a theater or something, and there are a few people on the stage that are going to present something. Now, let's say there are 4 or 5 people there. But one of them, say, is a very dear relative or a very, very close friend. Say one of them is your mother. They all, on the surface, they all look the same, more or less, I mean, in terms of their general appearance. There's nothing especially, there may not be anything especially to differ one from the other. But one of these people is your mother. Now, what is it? How do you react to that person rather than to the others who are perhaps not at all known to you? That doesn't come through the head. That comes through the heart. But what is it that tells you that this person is something special? The appearance may be very similar. just from their appearance, you may not be able to tell give any particular advantage to one or to another. But the fact that one of them is your mother, there is something very special. She may not be outstanding among them for one reason or another, but for you, she is outstanding. And it's not only the fact that you remember, yes, she gave birth to me, she raised me and all of that. Those are also things of the mind. But beyond that, there's something else that totally differentiates her from the other people. And that is where the heart comes in. There's something there when you see that person. Of course, I'm assuming there was a warm relationship with the parents. Sometimes the relationship with the parents is not very warm, and so that particular example would have to be shifted to some other person. But anyway, each one of us has one or more persons in our lives. When you see them, something leaps within you and says, yes. It may be a best friend, it may be a relative, but the difference that you tell that distinguishes that person from all the others is what we would call the heart. The heart tells you that. The mind may also tell you certain things about differences in qualitative, quantitative differences, but the thing that really moves you is the feeling, the heart. So, this is in terms of our ordinary relationship. When we talk about a spiritual relationship, when we talk about God, the question is, how are we to think of God? And really speaking, that is the central problem of our life. Because in all those things that deal with the mind, we're able to manage quite well with the instruction we get, with the education we get, with the training we get from relatives, from friends, from schoolmates, from so many sources. But this is the appreciation or the faith in God, or you see, because you talk about faith in God. Faith in God, if you look at it just on the surface, would mean you have faith in what? What is it that you have faith in? You see? Well, God is the creator, God is described in the Bible, God is described in the scriptures of the various religions. As long as it is just an analysis, as long as it is just something that comes through some mental operation, then that is not really considered as faith in God or an appreciation of the reality of that spiritual entity. The heart has to become active. Then one begins to understand what is meant by religion, what is meant by the love of God, what is meant by spirituality. Swami Vivekananda makes that point. He has one lecture called God in Everything. And he makes a very strong point of that the heart is the place where that spiritual knowledge comes. And it's not knowledge in the sense of learning something. It's knowledge in the sense of feeling something, feeling the reality. Now, why should this enter at all? Well, for one thing, we have the mind and we have the heart, and the heart leads us in many ways. Sometimes the heart leads us too strongly, sometimes the heart leads us into errors. The heart forces us in a certain direction. When the mind tells us, no, 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 this is dangerous, we shouldn't do this, the mind has analyzed and said, no, there's going to be a problem here. The heart rushes forward, and perhaps we get into a problem. So, these are the questions relating to these two parts of our nature, the mind and the heart. They're both necessary. The heart without a mind to guide and to direct and to coordinate, the heart would lead us into strange places. The mind is absolutely necessary. But the mind alone, without the heart, will enable us to do exceedingly well on the surface of things. We can navigate these waters with great brilliance, great success. But we're not going in any... It's like a boat that can sail exceedingly well, but unfortunately there's no rudder. There's no direction into which that boat, with all its speed and all its vigor, is going. So the heart gives us that direction, and the mind gives us the ability to follow it. So they're both absolutely necessary. But sometimes we emphasize the one without emphasizing the other, and that also brings problems. So how is it, for instance, that you would feel that there is such an entity as a God in this universe, that there is a spiritual entity? That is our major question. Really speaking, in our life, we've solved the questions that the mind has to deal with to a great extent. Something will always be left difficult and unsolved. But basically what the mind has to deal with, we know how to handle. But we can look with the mind and we can assess, let's say in the field of religion, we can assess all the necessity for answering this question: where is God? What is God? What is the source of our being, and where do we go after this? But there has to be something that stirs to life within us, that starts us not on an intellectual inquiry of all these questions, attempt to answer all these questions, but that actually starts us on the process toward realizing that reality which we call God. Of course, we have to ask the question, why do we want to find God? I mean, we can navigate this life perfectly well, and if there are problems in this navigation, there are many ways of dealing with that. We may not be able to find the solution. There may be a medical problem, but you know how to approach it. You may not be able to get to the medical answer, but at least you feel that some progress is being made. You're tackling the situation. But on the spiritual side, there seems to be sort of a very dense wall through which it is difficult to look. We are expected to believe, to accept the authority of what we have been told in the scriptures. And of course, by prayer, by meditation, by so many different spiritual disciplines, we are expected to try to gain more experience, more information, more realization. But what is it that we're trying to get? That is the question. We have instructions for undertaking the journey, but we really don't know where we're going. We don't know what we're aiming at. We can say, yes, we have to pray, we have to meditate, we have to study, we have to, so many different things we have to do. But exactly where we're heading, that is very hazy. Oh, yes, well, we can quote the scriptures and we can say this is the goal. But again, it's from the mind. The heart doesn't quite enter into that realm, usually. Or if it does enter into the realm, you understand then what we're trying to say here. If the heart has somewhat become aware, has got some direction of where that search is to go, then you will understand what it is that Swami Vivekananda in that particular lecture was driving at, and which we're trying to discuss right now. It's how to approach it, that is the question. How do you approach these things? How do you get into that realm, into that spiritual realm? And the main tool is really the feeling. That is to say, not the thought, but the actual experience of something. Then you will say, oh, okay, the experience of God, well, that's a very difficult thing. The scriptures and the great saints and sages, they point out there's a long road to go. There are many things to do. Yes, you can get an example, an outline of what you're aiming for. But to get any real spiritual experience is, a long way off. But that, really speaking, is not so. Really speaking, right now, we have to, should be our goal. Right now, I'm going to experience or feel the existence of that reality. It would be totally unreasonable if God or the spiritual reality were of such a nature that you could only attain it after many lifetimes of experience, after much austerity, after incredible spiritual practices, which we're told the saints and sages of every religion practice. They go out into the desert. Saint Anthony, the first Christian monk, went out into the Egyptian desert. He was the son of a wealthy farmer on the banks of the Nile, and he heard the preacher say, give up all you have, give it to the poor, and follow me. These are the quotations of Jesus from the New Testament. And so he decided to really do that. He gave up everything, went out into the desert with nothing, and somehow survived. He started getting some reeds and weaving baskets and things like that, and he would bring them to the nearest town and in exchange for food, like that. But all his time was spent in prayer and in trying to realize that. Give up all that thou hast and follow me, following Christ. And he became a great, great saint. So we admire that, we get inspired by it. But little old me, how am I going to do this? If this is it was the only way to realize God, then of course we might as well say, okay, good luck to all the people who can sail these troubled seas, but it doesn't look like I'm going to get anywhere. No, each one of us can experience the reality. It to some extent can actually experience enough so that we can say, yes, there is such a thing. How clearly we've experienced it, how strongly it has transformed our lives, that will certainly differ. But every one of us right now can experience the existence of that spiritual reality. That God is real, that there is such a thing, each one of us can feel right now. If it weren't so, then it would be totally, then you could say, well, all right, let the great ones go ahead, good luck to them, but for me, this is all I've got. But that is not the truth. That cannot be so. The basic statement of the Upanishads is Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. Sarvam, all, Khalu, indeed. This idam is Brahman. All of this is Brahman. In other words, where is God to be found? The answer is, where is God not to be found? That reality has to be the essence of everything. If that spiritual reality is the essence of only a particular thing that you have to do in a particular way under particular circumstances, that isn't what we're looking for. There may be such a thing, but that would be very small. That would be a very small goal, even a trivial goal. We want that which is present everywhere, all the time, immediately, right now. And can you feel the existence of that? Yes, definitely. The great sages, they tell us that. We don't tend to pay much attention on that, but that is the reality. That is the thing. Right now, we can feel the existence of God, and it's a matter of feeling. Basically feeling. It's not much a matter of thinking or accepting or deciding. It's a matter of experiencing. The essence of everything, this is the conclusion of the Upanishads, Sarvam Khalidam Brahma, all of this is Brahman. In its essence, everything is that divine reality. So how is it to be understood? In the same way that, this is again from one of the Upanishads, Chandogya Upanishad. If you've got a number of ornaments made of gold, there's a necklace, an earring, a plate. All these different things are there in front of you. What is the truth about them? Of course, they all differ in three things: name, form, and function. Totally different. But what is the real truth about them? Name, form, and function are superficial differences. The essence is that they're gold. So you have many different elements made of gold. And the truth, the real truth about them is not their differences. They all differ in so many different ways. But the truth about them is they're all gold. This is one of the most powerful ideas of the Upanishads. And it's also in one of the oldest of the Upanishads. So even from very, very ancient days, it has been understood. This Chandogya Upanishad and the Brihadaranyaka, those two are the oldest that have survived for us. And this is in one of them. These ideas are in one of them. Similar ideas are in the other one of the older Upanishads. So these ideas have survived, have been taught and have been experienced, have been proved, have been tested, probably for 6,000 years. So you say, well, what is so great about this? All these ornaments are made of gold. And the truth about them is, yes, they're gold. So what? How does that apply to this problem? The same thing is true about every one of us. We all differ in size, in shape, in form, in constitution, in our mental abilities. All the physical and psychological things are totally different from one of us to the other. But what is it that is the same? The presence of God within our hearts. At the very core of each one of us is the presence of God. What do you mean, us? What about these chairs and tables and rugs and buildings? At the heart of every perception is that divine principle, that divine reality, the essence, the core of every perception. Pratibodha viditam from the Kena Upanishad. In every perception it is to be seen. So the perceptions are all different. Everything that we see is different from everything else. But how do they differ? Only in name, form, and function. In essence, they are the same. But the essence we don't see. And so therefore we say, okay, well, they're all different. Well, what's so great about that? What have you told us? Have you told us anything significant? The answer is, I haven't said anything. The Upanishads are the ones who have said it. That the essence of every perception is gold. That is to say, is that spiritual reality. Now, if that is the case, then it is something we should try to perceive. And how do you perceive it? You can't take it apart, because if you take it apart, you find only name, form, and function. You find molecules and atoms and protons, neutrons, electrons, quarks and vibrating strings and God knows what else. That's all you find when you examine it in a physical way. But the essence of it all is gold. The essence of it is spirit, and it is the spirit that we have to try to find. We know a lot about the name, form, and function, and it's good, because knowing about that enables us to navigate in this world just beautifully. But we're full of unhappiness. Why are we full of unhappiness? Because we don't see. We only see the name, form, and function. We don't see the reality that is within, which is gold. Okay, now how do you see that gold? All the analysis that we know about is to cut it and open it, take it apart, see what it's made of, shine beams of light on it. Okay, want a little higher frequencies, shine X-rays on it. X-rays will tell us more. Shine beams of protons on it, you get still more information. That's only about name, form, and function. How do you find the reality, the essence of everything? That is by the realization of what they're really made of. And how is that to be achieved? Basically by stopping that outward going tendency and seeing the inner reality of it. So you say, okay, well, great saints and sages have been able to sit in meditation and, their minds become very one-pointed, very concentrated, and they're able to perceive this, but this is not possible for us. We've tried this and that. A few minutes of meditation, we can manage prayer. Yes, some concentration on prayer we can manage. Karma yoga, yes, we work selflessly for others, but we haven't experienced anything. All these things we've tried, nothing has happened. So how can you say that the essence, what proof have you got that the essence of everything is that spiritual gold? Now that is our homework. That is our homework. And the way it happens is, Sri Ramakrishna had this term, vyakulata, this intense yearning. He put tremendous emphasis on this yearning. This is something we definitely want. It's not something, in other words, the surface of things is easily perceived through the mind, through instruments, through so many things. But the essence, the gold that is really the essence, in other words, the spiritual reality that is the essence of every perception. How do you find that? One of the things is by tremendous desire. See, if the essence of every perception is a divine principle, a divine all-pervading reality, an infinite essence, it's totally unreasonable that we should not be able to, that we should have to work so very hard even to come to the very edges of it. How can it be that way? That you have to have a tremendous renunciation, tremendous self-sacrifice, tremendous this and that. We're not tremendous in any sense. So how is it, how can we get even a glimpse of that? So this, Sri Ramakrishna put great emphasis on this yearning. With intense yearning to experience that, to tell me what is the essence. You know, in his own life, that same situation occurred. He was a worshipper of the goddess Kali in the temple at Dakshineshwar on the bank of the Ganges near Calcutta. And his question was, okay, I'm worshiping this goddess, but for me it's just a monument of stone. There's nothing alive in it. There's nothing, I mean, it's just made up of the elements. Name, form, and function is all that seemed to appear there. The essence, that spiritual reality, spiritual goal was not apparent. With intense yearning, of course, he did it in such an extraordinary way. He used to rub his face on the ground in pain and misery. Why is it that I only see a stone here? Why is it that, you know, so many people say this statue is filled with consciousness, is the divine principle, the divine reality. I don't feel any of that. Why is it that I cannot even rub his face on the pavement? And but through that intense yearning, one day that he did perceive that. He perceived it as the truth, as the reality of that. That this was not just a statue that he was worshipping, that there was a reality there. And then he saw that reality everywhere. Not just in that image. His mind had been concentrated on that image, but he saw it everywhere. An infinite ocean of light, an infinite ocean of consciousness, of reality. He experienced that. Now, a little bit of course, you're going to say, yeah, okay, that was Sri Ramakrishna. He could do it 100% totally concentrated, but me, I'm this and that. I can't possibly manage that. No, if we think that way, nothing will ever happen. If you think it's impossible, then of course it will be impossible. Yes, it's impossible. I cannot possibly do it. Very good, it'll be impossible for you. But as soon as your mind changes, you say, no, it is possible. I just have to, you know, I just have to want that more and more. And the thing that happens is if you get the tiniest, tiny little feeling of an answer, tiniest little bit of an answer, or a response, you feel that there is more than name, form, and function. There's a little bit more than that. There's not just that, there is something else here. There's something you can't quite put it into words, but there is something profound, something very beautiful, something which lifts your heart up when you perceive even the very edge of it. Then you know, okay, there is something here in addition to the name, the form, and the function. There is a reality here on which name and form and function are placed, or a reality that is hidden by the name, form, and function. If you begin to feel a little tiny bit of that, first of all, Sat Chit Ananda, first of all means that you perceive a little bit of it. Chit is consciousness. Sat is existence. You feel that there is the existence of something. And it's something that is, there's a conscious relationship. There's the heart jumps at it. The heart becomes elated, just a little bit elated at it. Oh, there is something here. And what is the characteristic of it? Ananda. It is joy. It is joy itself. Of course, in the Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, it mentions the different layers of consciousness. And Ananda is the essence, is the core, is the heart, is the last thing that you can describe. Beyond Ananda, description stops. But if you feel a little bit of that, just the tiniest response, then you know, yes, there is such a thing. And you also know, the fact that when you realize that there is such a thing, your whole attitude toward everything changes. Oh, there is gold here. Name, form, and function are not the only thing things that are present here. There is that spiritual reality. Then you choose one aspect of that reality. This is called the Ishtam, the chosen aspect of divinity. And to concentrate on something that is very close to your heart. You begin to, you can concentrate on that. So, by concentrating on that, the Ishtam itself, the chosen ideal itself, is the essence of that is that joy, is that luminosity, is that bliss. I mean, if you get the slightest little eensy-weensy little bit, that will change everything. And if you've gotten it once, even the slightest distant taste once, it can come again. Not only that, you can actually test that. You can actually test that. Okay, if this is true, then please, there's some real problem has arisen in your life. Some real problem, let us say, has arisen. Surrendering to that reality, whatever it is, that chosen reality, that Ishtam, surrendering to that, becoming absorbed in that, just relying on that entirely. Here's a problem that has arisen. What am I going to do about it? I have no way. I mean, if the problem is something very trivial, you don't bother. But if it's something really fundamental, existential, something really significant, if we try to concentrate on that and see whether any result happens. They say, pray to God and this will be done. Okay, well, let us try it. If we get any answer on this, if we don't get any answer, then we're justified in saying, okay, well, it's just I've tried this, there's nothing to it. But you have to really try it. But if you try it and you find that there is a slight answer, you know that there's somebody out there that's listening to you. It's not that you're calling, oh Lord, and the echo comes back, oh Lord, there's nothing else there, just the echo. There's more than that. And one can find that, one can feel that, one can actually experience it in tiny, tiny little ways. I won't be convincing to anybody else, but you know, yes, there is something there. There is a reality there. And it's not just name, form, and function. It's not just what appears on the surface. There is something fundamental in this universe. And different religions call it by different names, but they all are united in this idea that there is a spiritual essence here. There is something which is real, which is the essence of everything. So it's not just name, form, and function, and it's totally mechanical. There is something else here. But now, in order to convince yourself, you have to do these experiments. Just to say, well, I don't know, there's nothing here, there's no indication. Forget it, and then you go about your ordinary business. Then, of course, nothing will happen. You're not really looking. But if you're really looking for this essence, and each religion has its own ways of speaking about it, if you're really looking for it, a slight little glimpse of it will come. And then, okay, then energy comes, okay, now there does seem to be something, let us try further, let us experiment further, let us define it further. Let us get a response, a deeper, a more significant response. That is the point. Divine presence and divine reality. That is the thing. We just simply to see, one problem is that our ordinary life is so demanding and so limiting that we don't take the time for that inner inquiry, that inner journey. But that reality, if God is a reality, there has to be a way of experiencing that. If simply we're satisfied with what we have experienced, our own life as it is now, and we have not experienced anything, okay, well, the next life we'll experience something, maybe we'll get some proof. That is not enough. What do we know about the next life? Right now we have, see, you get an answer. Right now we have strength, we have energy, we have purpose, we have a desire to achieve something. Right now we have to do what is necessary and at least start somewhere, something. If we're totally surrounded by that divine reality, any one of 1,000 ways should be possible to approach that. Divine presence and divine reality. That is the subject. And the message from all of the spiritual experiences from all the teachers of the world, the message is that it can be done. It can be experienced in every religion under all circumstances. It can be experienced. And what is our obligation? To find a way of doing that. That is what we should do. Find a way of somehow experiencing that. And that is really the important aspect of our life. Everything else is for maintenance and for, the ordinary purposes of existence. That's fine. But if we don't have that other element, if we don't have that spiritual search, that spiritual yearning, then we're really missing a great opportunity. But if we have it, there is an approach to that reality. It's not that we will not experience it. It is quite possible that everyone who tries, because Jesus in the Bible says, seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. This is the message of religion. Not to make it so difficult that there's nothing you can do except follow these set practices. So many ways there are, so many paths are there, but knock and it shall be opened unto you. But we have to knock. It doesn't say. See, that's one mistake we made. We think we shall wait until that realization comes. Knock and it shall be opened. You have to knock. Seek and you shall find. You have to seek as if your very life depended upon it. You can't just say, oh, well, let's see now. It's one among many things I will do. Yes, I will seek. No, that has to be the central, the first. Because if that search brings about a result, everything else you want in life, and it shall all be added unto you, Jesus goes on to say. Everything else that you want in life will be illumined by that. All right, thank you.